So if you've been playing Planet Coaster at all, you may have realised that there's a slight issue with the stations in Planet Coaster for nearly all of the coasters. They're just far too big, so I wanted to give you a quick tutorial on how to make a custom station which lets you control everything from the length of the station, design of the track, and the entire station as a whole to give you the ultimate freedom when it comes to building coasters. This is a bit of a trick I've been using for about a year now. It features in my Nemesis recreation and a lot of the newer coasters that I build. It's a fairly simple trick, but can be a little bit tricky to set up, so I wanted to make a quick video on basically how you do it, and just generally talk you through the process of some of the quirks and some of the reasons that maybe you might want to avoid it if you don't like certain visual annoyances, and obviously it isn't going to work if you want guests in the game. But for the purpose of realism, it's a pretty solid way of building coasters and stations. So without further ado, let's get into the building process. So basically the main premise of how you do this and how to get the best results is try and use a coaster that has invisible launch sections. And this is any coaster that wasn't designed to use LSMs without the mods. So basically any coaster that isn't the Mac launch coasters, the Premier launch, the I want to say it's the Eurofighter and the Infinity, and also the any sit-down B&M that isn't the dive coaster. Any of these will have invisible sections which you can use to create an invisible station. So we're going to start. I'm going to use the B&M Invert just because it's a good coaster and it has invisible sections. So we're going to start basically by using this as our main station, and the premise of this is that this station is going to be underground, and what's going to happen is the station is going to dispatch from the station up out of the floor into the fixed station, where it will then continue on into the layout. And we start this by using a chain lift. So also, without saying, you do need the V3 mod for this to work. I'll leave a link to the video that I made on how to install it in the description, and just ensure that you have track limits and things off for the best possible results. So the first thing we're going to do is set 90-degree angle snap straight up and out of this, and we're going to use a chain lift to act as our first block section so that the trains can advance when there isn't anything next to it. We're then going to spin it 90 degrees using a 1 meter section straight round up into a flat section here. Continue it straight on. Also, at any point, if you try and place an entrance or exit, it will say it can't be. Well, okay, it's now saying you can be placed, but sometimes if you have an issue where you can't place an entrance or an exit, simply delete the straight section that runs above the station, because sometimes that can cause some issues. So what we're going to do is we're going to have this flat section here, where we're then going to curl up 90 degrees whilst spinning, go flat, and also then go flat, and then we're going to bend it slightly past 90. There's a 1 meter section, so we have access to our LSM tools. Now, this flat section here, we're going to make into an LSM section, which will push the train out of the station. No, we're not. We're going to place a 1 meter, then the length, because it glitches out sometimes. We're going to place a 1 meter section, have it at about 6 miles an hour with a 18 or so meters per second squared launch value, meaning that the train will get pushed through. Now we're going to build a large straight section upwards. This is the bit that's going to come out of the ground, so if you have a fairly tall station, make sure that this is tall enough so that the station isn't visible when you place it in your park. Now we're going to curl immediately up 90 degrees, angle snap on, and place a 1 meter section before moving on to the main station straight. Now, it's important that you know the length of your train so that you can create an accurate station guide. Now, I recommend placing a flat station piece down and then sort of measuring using rulers or track segments the length of the train you want, and then adding about 1 or 2 meters on the end of it in front of the train for a naturally realistic look. If it has a lead car, ignore that and simply build the entire length of the train. So for this invert, I'm going to go for about 39 feet, but I am not going to knock that down to 36, so 2 and then 1. So 36 feet. This is an 8-car invert. We're going 4? That's 9 cars. Why is that 9 cars? It's 8 cars. So I'm going to go with about 36 feet. Add a 2 meter section here. Actually, I think that might be a bit long. Nope, that is pretty much the length of the train, so it's fine. I'm going to add a 2 meter section and then a 1 meter section. Now, the point of adding the 2 meter section is this is going to be your holding brake. Now, we're going to use the LSM holding section, and you might be wondering, well, why not just use one piece for the whole thing? Well, that's because the train will try and speed up to 9 miles an hour before slowing down, which is not ridiculously realistic. In some coasters it is, like 13 Alton Towers does that, but for the sake of this, we're just going to use the one section. So the first thing to do is place your holding brake. Now, we're going to use the LSM holding section, set the target speed to about, well, I'm going to go for 4 miles an hour. If you want a fast launch, you can go faster than that. Obviously, if you want a slow one, you can go slower. Set the acceleration to about 3 meters per second squared. And then we can increase the launch delay to 10 seconds, block section mode on, allowing the trains to stop and start when there's something in the layout. And you might notice we have a stop distance slider. And now what this does is it will determine the train's position stopping on the piece. So if I have it to 3 feet, it's going to try and stop basically as far onto the end of the piece as possible, whereas a stop distance of 0 feet will try and... I've got that the wrong way around, haven't I? Basically, a stop distance of 0 feet is going to stop the train right at the end of the piece here, whereas a stop distance of 3 feet will stop it as far back as possible from the end of the piece. And these tiny little adjustments you do actually impact the train, so it's a good idea if you want to use that to adjust the position of the train. Gives you a lot of freedom to do it, basically. So the piece directly before it, we're going to set to the same values of 4 and 3. And then the piece immediately after it, we're going to... actually, no, we're not. We're going to grab these two pieces here, slightly move them down so that it doesn't cause any issues later on, and set the first one to 3 meters per second squared, and then we're going to move 2 pieces down so we've got a 1-piece gap between our first LSM section, and we're going to set the acceleration rate to about 20 meters per second squared. Then we're going to set that one to 20 meters per second squared, and we're done. Basically, this is how the train is going to get to the first section of the station to leave and go through your layout. Now we need to build it the other way so that the train knows what to do when coming back from the layout. So we're going to take this piece here, extend it a couple of times, get these why have we got double flanges? What is wrong with this game? Set the track, and we're basically going to lower it down ever so slightly, like 1 on 2, 3 notches of dropping it down. I think 3 is too much. So that the track is lower. Now this is to counter any potential issues where the game might try and connect 2 tracks that end on the exact same point. Even though they continue on, it causes a very weird glitch. But we're going to have to deal with it. We're then going to delete this section here and basically build backwards what we've already built using this side. So we're going to build the same section here. So we're going to go with a 1 meter section, a 2 meter section, and then for me a 36-foot section. And basically what this is going to do is stop the train in the exact same position as the entry, but obviously coming in the backwards way. So then we're going to build, for me in my case, the transfer section. So that's 1 meter, 2 meter, and then 36 feet. If you don't want to put your transfer directly before your station, you can simply just essentially build backwards from here as though you were building back from a normal station, and then simply do your brake run and etc. backwards and in another place. But for now I'm going to do it this way. So what we're going to do is delete these 2 sections because we simply do not need them, and then we're going to adjust our values here. So we're going to set this holding section to the same value but drop it down to be 3 meters per second squared. We're going to drop this one to the same value. That one needs to be the same. Holding section, same value, but I would drop the launch delay down to 1 or 2 seconds instead. Make sure you've got block section mode checked for everything, and then we're going to add the rest of the brake run here. I do recommend, if you're working with invisible sections, is to build them using normal track pieces first and then convert them to LSMs so you know what you're doing. For the sake of the video and also ease of access, I've kept these two LSM 1 meter pieces visible so that we can use to help build the track. So what I'm going to do is convert these into a custom station using TMTK pieces. I'll leave a link to these Rails pieces in the description because they're part of a set I'm making of detailed coaster pieces you can use to create really realistic coasters that you might have seen I've been teasing on Discord, etc. So we're going to basically just use these to build the rails. So we're going to move these as best we can in the middle of the 2 rail diameters, connect them together, and for the sake of the video, just simply connect them together, drag them along, roughly into the position where the train would stop, which is roughly about here, and then copy and paste them next to one. If you're going to be doing a transfer section before your station, a realistic tip is to keep a slight gap in the rails so that the tracks can move, etc. And this is a great little detail for when you're building custom tracks and transfers and things. So the next thing we're going to do is build the return leg of the station. Now this can be a bit temperamental, so I'm going to set this up as the best way to avoid issues with connecting the track. So the first thing we're going to do is take our normal station, which is the one where the train goes into it and comes out for your layout, and you're going to extend this to roughly about 9 feet or 3 meters. Then we're going to grab the bottom return one, or whichever one is the one you want the train to come into and then disappear into the floor. And we're going to basically grab this section here. It can be a bit fiddly. Maybe place 2. And we're going to change these into normal track. Before grabbing this, we're going to delete 2 pieces back so that we're at the start of our 2-meter section, and then we're going to build 90 degrees down. Now this is where the train is going to disappear into the floor, so make sure you build this far enough down that it disappears out of view. Bend it up 90 degrees, fire it straight along before now connecting the track to the end of the section here, as so. Now, basically before you connect it up, if you build backwards from the actual station here, place a 2-meter section and then make it a block section. This will allow a train to hold before going into the main station. Now we're going to convert the sections back to the respective LSMs they should be. So the LSM holding section here should be 10 seconds with a block section, 4, 0, and then for now just going to make this whole section a holding break. And then take this section here and convert it to an LSM as well. And now we have our invisible station. This section can just stay as is for now. Now, we're going to test it to make sure that it works. And at this point, this is where you'll make your adjustments for the holding position, the speed, etc. before you move it into the floor so that you have the easiest access for adjustments and things. So the train will now rise up out of the floor. Obviously, at this point, if you're not wanting to see this, it's best to hide it within a station. But obviously, if you don't like this at all, I would avoid this method as there's no way of avoiding it. The train will then move out of the floor, roll forward onto our new custom tracks section here, where it will then hold. Wait the predetermined either 10 seconds or until the next available block is free before advancing into the layout. The next thing to do is to check that it works both ways. So what we're going to do is quickly just connect these 2 sections of track together. As so. And now we're just going to test that they actually connect up. So I'm just going to, for the sake of this, just need to add an LSM. Make it 58.7. And then 72. There we go. I'll just trim it so it doesn't absolutely catastrophically disintegrate. It's just not deciding to trim. And now basically what this will do is allow us to test the position of the stopping train, and so you can see what it looks like when it disappears into the ground. This is going to fly around. Actually didn't fly around that much. So it's going to come into the station through the transfer section there. I've got it to stop on the transfer anyway. I think it's waiting for 10 seconds. I'll just skip. It's then going to roll into the station here, where it will then come to a complete stop on the other 2-meter section and then wait for the offload. Once it's done waiting, it will then descend into the ground as so, before going back into the actual station, all of which you won't see. The only issue obviously is your G-force results are scuffed and you can't use them. It'll say something like that. Or if you don't want that, you could always trim it so that it doesn't pull such negative Gs. Now, in order to set this up, what we're going to do is grab our finished station section. I'm going to press done, and we're now going to move it into the ground. Take the rails with us would be ideal. We're now going to move it into the ground. You might be iffy with terrain at this point, but if you, with some adjustment, you can make it work. We're going to grab it into the ground, delete any outlying horribleness. So basically, all you're left with is your clean new station. Now, for the sake of the video, I'm going to use my some pieces from my B&M invert set, which we'll be releasing soon. So if I just type in B&M invert, you have all of these pieces to choose from when it releases. And we're going to use the I-beam cross tie. And I'm basically just going to build a very quick station straight. So I'll take this piece here, grab it to the end of the transfer, drag and select both of these, duplicate, place the middle one, grab these two, duplicate, place the middle one, and so on and so forth. And there we go. So now I'm going to use the I-beam spine, which is here, drag it up to here, place it there, build it backwards, put it there, and there you go. So that is a very rough station design. Obviously, you can use different track pieces, you could use beams, you could use different TMTK pieces to create your custom track, which gives you the ultimate freedom for your station design. And that about sums up the video. That is the method. You might find that it's a bit fiddly to connect the track up. If so, try and troubleshoot by getting rid of block sections, changing lengths and things, and basically just try not to confuse the game as best you can. Always offset tracks overlapping, just in case they decide to connect to each other, and just make sure that you build normally and then place the LSMs. So anyway, thank you guys for watching this tutorial. I'll have some more in this sort of mini-series of Planet Coaster tidbits that you need to know. Just a quick update about the Nemesis video. It is very nearing completion. It will not be too long until it's out. Stay tuned. I don't have an exact release date, but it is in the works and coming very soon. And as I've said, I'll have some other projects in the works as well, such as some one-off coasters and, of course, the new coaster TMTK set, which I am working on. So that's enough waffling, and thank you very much for watching this video. Stay tuned for the next one, and I will see you all next time.